I would like to start this morning by saying a very good morning to a very handsome-looking, dapper gentleman. No, I'm not flirting. I'm merely looking at what I see in the Express newspaper today. Yes, very nice shot, sir. His name is David West. He's the director of the Police Complaints Authority. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. Thank you very much for that introduction. Good morning to your listeners, and I look forward to a fruitful and discussion here with you this morning.
I think it is going to be as it has been before. I trust that you find it that. You are certified anti-money laundering specialist. That's what you are. You've previously been a state prosecutor in the office of the DPP, director designated of the Financial Intelligence Unit. You have done all these things, but right now you're in charge of that very important area of Police Complaints Authority. The authority, as we know, the last time we were here, we were anticipating a number of things happening. Prosecutorial powers, that's what you asked for, in independent funding or more funding that would allow your office to be more efficient and better be able to see cases through. I hear that these cases have been addressed because it has been addressed. However, what does it mean today? Do you have those powers, the prosecutorial power initially and the funding that you need to up the ante for the efficiency of your office? Have you seen that, or is that just on the table already approved?
That is currently before the Legislative Review Committee of Parliament, before the Honourable Attorney General. We have had several meetings on these new amendments to our Act, which is positive. I must say it's very positive. There's just one or two amendments that we want to make sure we get correct, and we'll move forward. The Attorney General has promised that the amendments will go before Parliament by September. So I'm expecting after the budget is read and debated that our amendments should come right after.
And for the listeners who are not familiar with what the PC is, the Police Complaints Authority, would you, because you're going to have, this coming Tuesday, you're going to have a community outreach taking place at City Hall at 6 p.m. That is this coming Tuesday, 6 p.m. at City Hall, a community outreach of the PCA. Explain to the uninitiated, what is the PCA and its role, please?
Sure. The PCA is the Police Complaints Authority. So basically, if you have a complaint against a police officer involving a criminal offense by a police officer, serious police misconduct by the police officer, or police corruption, you can make a complaint to the PCA and we will then investigate that matter. Now, the PCA is, and I just want to quote from the head note in the Police Complaints Authority Act. It is an act to establish an independent body. Let me repeat that. It's an act to establish an independent body to investigate criminal offenses involving police officers, police corruption, and serious police misconduct, and for other related matters. Now, let me just, Mr. Bishop, it's important that the public understand how independent we are.
Yes.
And we are an authority established by statute. The statute is Act Chapter number 1505 in 2006. This act became force. It was proclaimed in 2006, and Justice Lucky and Master Doyle were the first director and deputy director who established it. So it started in 2010, December 31st, 2010. But it's important to know that the power they give us in this act, it's big.
It is a lot of power.
Yes. And Section 19 talks about the independence of the authority. So it says the authority is not subject to the direction or control of any other person in the performance of its functions under Section 21 and 22. And I'll get to the functions later. But the Act is saying that you, David West, and Deputy Director Andrew Stroud should not and cannot, and it will be an offense if you do, you take direction from any higher body to tell you what or what not to investigate.
Broken down, we means no politician, no political party, no minister, nobody should be giving direction to Director West and his assistants and those in his office in the execution of their responsibility.
Exactly. And it also talks about confidentiality in terms of that every piece of correspondence that comes to us is an investigation is confidential. And we cannot and we should not disclose that to anybody.
And while you are laying this out, just briefly, is that the argument that is made in your feature piece in the Express today that deals with the question of the freedom of information, folks having access to that information that you just said is confidential?
Correct. That is on the ball. Under the Freedom of Information Act, anybody from outside can ask the PCA and has a right to ask the PCA for what is going on with investigation A, B, and C.
Anybody.
And that runs contrary to our act. And our act is similar in terms to the Integrity in Public Life Act. And they have exemption on the Freedom of Information Act. Now, if you look at the legislation and how the courts have interpreted the Freedom of Information Act, they have given the leeway to the applicants. So many occasions, the applicant is successful in any matter he brings against a state company for not giving the information. For example, Devon Mirage matter. So therefore, we need to get exempt from that because it's unfair for somebody who comes to me in confidence about an officer, and then he can then go to the Freedom of Information Act and say, well, tell me what is going on with my matter, that officer, against me. And it runs afoul of the act.
But I would think that understanding the act, that if you have an investigation going on, then that information is one that would be apart from any access one can get with the Freedom of Information.
I agree with you, but the courts have jealously guarded the citizens' right to information and transparency when it comes to public bodies. We are a statutory body, and therefore we have had a legal opinion on it. And the legal opinion says in most cases you have to disclose.
In most cases, you have to disclose.
Yeah. So
and
therefore,
so you are now moving to get this changed. You're
exactly,
saying this has to be changed.
Yes, and the change comes about, and it's not legislative. It is just under the a cabinet note, a ministerial note has to be done to effect it. So we have to go to cabinet or the Attorney General and put our case forward why we should be exempt under the Freedom of Information Act.
Director David West is our guest first in Brunch this morning. He's made clear the independence of the PCA. There is a question, however, that folks always ask, who is going to guard the guards? So who does the PCA answer to? If you no one from any political party, no one from anywhere else can influence the director and or those who work in his office, who is the PCA answerable to then?
We are answerable to Parliament via the Joint Select Committee. We are answerable to the courts. Anybody is free to file. Once you're an interested party, you can file an application for judicial review of any decision we take. We are answerable through Parliament through our audited financial accounts because we get a budget, and again in that budget we are not answerable to anybody to how we spend that money. So for example, if I wanted in the morning, I could go out and buy a helicopter or a boat if I wanted to. But of course, when the accounts were laid in Parliament, they're going to say, well, what is this for? So I'm accountable that way, and I'm accountable through our annual report, which I give a breakdown of what investigations we have done in terms of numbers, how they have come out, and other stuff about the PCA which is relevant to the public. The investigation of police officers who are accused of committing transgressions that require investigation will not in the future be carried out by the police service itself, giving rise to themselves in investigating themselves. A unit is set up in the Police Complaints Authority for that purpose, and we believe this is a far superior approach to the approach that currently subsists. And Mr. Pandey says, the main objective is to provide a means whereby people who have complaints against the police will be able to have them investigated. We pointed out that when we met with the government, as we are pointing out now, that we cannot have the police investigating the police. Let me repeat that. Mr. Pandey is saying we cannot have the police investigating the police. It would not work. We have to find a mechanism or investigating body that would allow for policemen to be investigated without the burden of what is called corporate loyalty. So you see, we had both Mr. Pandey and Mr. Manning agreeing that they wanted an independent body with the powers to investigate matters involving police officers.
It is legislated that independence is there. Good. Public, however, asks many questions when they hear of a body being set up because of the loss of confidence in a lot of our institutions. They ask the question, okay, so who in the PCA, who is working for the PCA? Is it possible then that they would have policemen working in the PCA to help them in their investigations, thus giving the same concerns I have if I went to a police precinct or police station, as the case be?
Mr. Bishop, you're on the ball this morning, and I'm very happy. You're right. And
well, I knew you were
act,
coming in, so I had to be prepared.
Yeah. Our act specifically says that police officers shall not. Section 24 of our act says the powers and functions of the authority are exercisable by A, the director and deputy director, that's me and Mr. Stroud, and B, any person not being a police officer appointed by the authority to conduct an investigation. So it is quite clear that you cannot have police officers investigating police officers. And no police officer is a member of the PCA. Now, that brings me on to I'll come on to the amendments later on, but I will show you how it is all tied up in what I want to show you and how our act came into being. So we have the 2006 Act now where they have no police officers. All right? And as I stressed before, we are independent. And this is what I want to let the public know. We are independent, so we are not influenced by anybody. So nobody could tell me and Mr. Stroud how to conduct our business. That is PCA business, and stay out of PCA business. Right? And I said we are accountable through the courts, joint select committees, the annual report, and audited committees. Then I'll just go on to talk about what do. We audit police investigations. We monitor police investigations. Of course, we carry out our own investigations, okay? We are allowed to initiate our own investigation.
You can concurrently be monitoring police investigation while they're investigating a case?
Yes.
I see.
And they have to give us documents and the police file.
And you can do that with or without a complaint being lodged in your office from a member of the public?
Correct.
Good, okay.
Correct. Now, however, it obviously helps us very much if the person being investigated or the complainant, that is the person who is the victim of the police abuse, comes in and makes a complaint, because we would need him as a witness to give a statement saying, yes, Officer X did so and so. We can investigate it, but we need a physical body there.
Yes.
Right? We can give advice to the police service. We can gather evidence that may be used in the prosecution of a police officer and furnish that evidence to the DPP. We could also gather evidence that may be used in an investigation of serious police misconduct and give that to the Commissioner of Police. Okay?
There is a general feeling that the PCA could be the nightmare of operating police officers, when in fact the PCA can be the nightmare if there is wrongdoing, but the best friend of police officers if there is no foul evidence.
Exactly. And I'll come to our statistics, but we have closed a lot of matters that have been investigated against police officers, meaning that we have found insufficient evidence against police officers. So, just to give you an example, right? A company had some goods stolen from them, all right? And I contacted the company, and they said that the officers were very good officers. They worked beyond the call of duty, and they were able to bring the persons to book. So I said, let me call the officer to see how the investigation went. So when I called the officer in charge of the investigation, I identified myself to him, David West, Director of PCA, and he was very standoffish. But when I told him about the matter and how the persons that were robbed were so grateful and happy with the police work, and I said I wanted to commend you on your work, it was a total change, and he said, thank you very much. So I want to assure police officers listening out there that when we come to an investigation, we come with an open mind. Nobody is guilty until everybody is innocent and proven guilty. Nobody is guilty until proven innocent. We investigate the matter openly, transparently. We look at both sides, and then we come to a conclusion.